Everyone knows about the square and about the stone. Stone of Sorrow, the memorial of victims of political repressions in Tomsk region. But why does it stand here? Because of this building. 44 Lenina Square. In 1917, when Soviet regime came to Siberia, this building was nationalized, remodeled and turned into a castle. Yes, it was established in 1989, but the first exhibition took part only in 1996, because this basement needed a big repair. But the first visitor who came to this museum, and he came 2 years before the first exhibition was opened, it was Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Summer 1994, he visited this museum and actually left the very first entry in our guest book, and actually it's the very first initiative, the very first museum of such topic in USSR, and nowadays it's a unique museum. In this showcase there are things that were found during the repair of this building. Gun shells and bullets were found under the floor of the first floor under the investigators' offices, and they were an evidence of interrogations involving firearms. Temporary containment cell reconstruction. This reconstruction is actually not precise because there was no table like that, and prison beds were 2 or even 3 levels high. And talking about number of people that cell like that might contain, during the Great Terror, this number was up to 25-30 people. From 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. prisoners were not permitted to sit down or lay down even on the floor. They needed to stay here standing. After 10 p.m. yes, prison beds were put down and prisoners were permitted to sleep, but in the nighttime interrogations were taking part. I've been working with the memories of a man who spent 25 years in camps, and there is a story about that camp that they used an overcrowded room method for separation. Imagine a group of new prisoners arrive in a camp, and they were placed in a special barrack. This barrack can contain up to 30 people, but they were slamming somewhere around 100 inside and locking them for a few days. After they opened that barrack, those who can walk out on their own were considered strong and sent to works, and those who fainted, went insane or even died, they were just disposed of as unnecessary. NKVD investigators workspace reconstruction. The most interesting things in here are these files. After the collapse of Soviet Union, on this wave of global declassification and destruction of that cult of the old regime, local FSB archives permitted us to take these copies. Who are these people? This is Rostislav Ilyin, a geologist who actually found oil in Western Siberia. He was a social revolutionary, SR. So he was executed in 1937, mostly for his political views. And this big file belongs to a famous Russian poet, a big friend of Sergei Yesenin, Nikolai Kluyev. The Great Terror is a period in Soviet history that starts from 1937 and ends on 1938. It's called the Great Terror because actually of the biggest numbers on arrests and executions, the most bizarre laws. So these 2 years were the most cruel years in Soviet history. And in this room, on this wall, you can see Soviet propaganda. Everyone works hard and lives large. And on the other side of the room, there is an objective reality, also known as the genocide. And in between, there is a showcase that represents everyday life of that era, because we cannot deny that there is an everyday life. But what about families of political prisoners? Wives? They were arrested as accomplices. Ex-wives were arrested by the same reason. If someone in your family is arrested, it means all the family is in danger. So people were doing lots of different stuff to save themselves, and the most basic, the simplest one method was to cut away arrested family members from family photos, to cut them away or to scratch out their faces. These people spend time in camps themselves, sometimes a very hard time in camps, especially Georgy Uspensky. This man spent 20 years in camps, and being a political prisoner somehow managed to become a prison's kingpin. And these people, when this museum was established, these people donated some personal things that they saved from their camp times to our museum, and that very first exhibition that happened here, and it was called Everyday Life and Crafts in Gulag, was created from those personal things.